双语音标领航，注音阅读启蒙，叶兴阳有声读物。
I Say, N.O. by Wilkie Collins. Book the First at School. Chapter 1. The Smuggled Supper. Outside the bedroom the night was black and still. The small rain fell too softly to be heard in the garden. Not a leaf stirred in the airless calm. The watchdog was asleep. The cats were indoors. Far or near, under the murky heaven, not a sound was stirring. Inside the bedroom the night was black and still. Miss Ladd knew her business as a schoolmistress too well to allow nightlights. And Miss Ladd's young ladies were supposed to be fast asleep, in accordance with the rules of the house. Only at intervals the silence was faintly disturbed, when the restless turning of one of the girls in her bed betrayed itself by a gentle rustling between the sheets. In the long intervals of stillness, not even the softly audible breathing of young creatures asleep was to be heard. The first sound that told of life and movement revealed the mechanical movement of the clock. Speaking from the lower regions, the tongue of Father Time told the hour before midnight. A soft voice rose wearily near the door of the room. It counted the strokes of the clock and reminded one of the girls of the lapse of time. Emily. 11 o'clock. There was no reply. After an interval the weary voice tried again, in louder tones. Emily, a girl, whose bed was at the inner end of the room, sighed under the heavy heat of the night and said, in peremptory tones, "Is that Cecilia?" "Yes." "What do you want?" "I'm getting hungry." "Emily, is the new girl asleep?" The new girl answered promptly and spitefully,
"No, she isn't."
Having a private object of their own in view, the 5 wise virgins of Miss Ladd's first class had waited an hour, in wakeful anticipation of the falling asleep of the stranger, and it had ended in this way. A ripple of laughter ran round the room. The new girl, mortified and offended, entered her protest in plain words. "You are treating me shamefully. You all distress me, because I am a stranger." "Say we don't understand you," Emily answered, speaking for her schoolfellows, "and you will be nearer the truth. Who expected you to understand me, when I only came here today? I have told you already my name is Francine Dessor. If want to know more, I'm 19 years old, and I come from the West Indies." Emily still took the lead. "Why do you come here?" she asked. "Whoever heard of a girl joining a new school just before the holidays? You are 19 years old. Are you? I'm a year younger than you and I have finished my education. The next big girl in the room is a year younger than me and she has finished her education. What can you possibly have left to learn at your age?" "Everything," cried the stranger from the West Indies, with an outburst of tears. "I'm a poor ignorant creature. Your education ought to have taught you to pity me instead of making fun of me. I hate you all. For shame. For shame." Some of the girls laughed. One of them, the hungry girl who had counted the strokes of the clock, took Francine's part. "Never mind their laughing, Miss Dessor. You are quite right. You have good reason to complain of us." Miss Dessor dried her eyes. "Thank you, whoever you are," she answered briskly. "My name is Cecilia Wyville." The other proceeded. "It was not, perhaps, quite nice of you to say you hated us all. At the same time we have forgotten our good breeding and the least we can do is to beg your pardon." This expression of generous sentiment appeared to have an irritating effect on the peremptory young person who took the lead in the room. Perhaps she disapproved of free trade in generous sentiment. "I can tell you one thing, Cecilia," she said, "you shan't beat me in generosity. Strike a light, one of you, and lay the blame on me if Miss Ladd finds us out. I mean to shake hands with the new girl. How can I do it in the dark? Miss Dessor, my name's Brown, and I'm queen of the bedroom. I not Cecilia offer apologies if we have offended you. Cecilia is my dearest friend, but I don't allow her to take the lead in the room."
"Oh,
what a lovely nightgown!" The sudden flow of candlelight had revealed Francine, sitting up in her bed, and displaying such treasures of real lace over her bosom that the queen lost all sense of royal dignity in irrepressible admiration. 7 and 6pence. Emily remarked, looking at her own nightgown and despising it, one after another. The girls yielded to the attraction of the wonderful lace. Slim and plump, fair and dark, they circled round the new pupil in their flowing white robes, and arrived by common consent at one and the same conclusion. How rich her father must be, favored by fortune in the matter of money. Was this enviable person possessed of beauty as well? In the disposition of the beds, Miss de Sor was placed between Cecilia on the right hand and Emily on the left. If, by some fantastic turn of events, a man, say in the interests of propriety, a married doctor, with Miss Ladd to look after him, had been permitted to enter the room, and had been asked what he thought of the girls when he came out, he would not even have mentioned Francine. Blind to the beauties of the expensive nightgown, he would have noticed her long upper lip, her obstinate chin, her sallow complexion, her eyes placed too close together, and would have turned his attention to her nearest neighbors. On one side, his languid interest would have been instantly roused by Cecilia's glowing auburn hair, her exquisitely pure skin, and her tender blue eyes. On the other, he would have discovered a bright little creature, who would have fascinated and perplexed him at one and the same time. If he had been questioned about her by a stranger, he would have been at a loss to say positively whether she was dark or light. He would have remembered how her eyes had held him, but he would not have known of what color they were. And yet, she would have remained a vivid picture in his memory when other impressions, derived at the same time, had vanished. There was one little witch among them, who was worth all the rest put together, and I can't tell you why. They called her Emily. If I wasn't a married man, there he would have thought of his wife, and would have sighed, and said no more. While the girls were still admiring Francine, the clock struck the half-hour past 11. Cecilia stole on tiptoe to the door, looked out, and listened, closed the door again, and addressed the meeting with the irresistible charm of her sweet voice and her persuasive smile. "Are none of you hungry yet?" she inquired. "The teachers are safe in their rooms. We have set ourselves right with Francine. Why keep the supper waiting under Emily's bed?" Such reasoning as this, with such personal attractions to recommend it, admitted of but one reply. The Queen waved her hand graciously, and said, "Pull it out," is a lovely girl whose face possesses the crowning charm of expression, whose slightest movement reveals the supple symmetry of her figure, less lovely because she is blessed with a good appetite, and is not ashamed to acknowledge it. With a grace all her own, Cecilia dived under the bed, and produced a basket of jam tarts, a basket of fruit and sweetmeats, a basket of sparkling lemonade, and a superb cake, all paid for by general subscriptions, and smuggled into the room by kind connivance of the servants. On this occasion, the feast was especially plentiful and expensive, in commemoration not only of the arrival of the midsummer holidays, but of the coming freedom of Miss Ladd's two leading young ladies. With widely different destinies before them, Emily and Cecilia had completed their school life, and were now to go out into the world. The contrast in the characters of the two girls showed itself, even in such a trifle as the preparations for supper. Gentle Cecilia, sitting on the floor surrounded by good things, left it to the ingenuity of others to decide whether the baskets should be all emptied at once, or handed round from bed to bed, one at a time. In the meanwhile, her lovely blue eyes rested tenderly on the tarts. Emily's commanding spirit seized on the reins of government, and employed each of her schoolfellows in the occupation which she was fittest to undertake. "Miss de Sor, let me look at your hand."
Ah,
"I thought so. You have got the thickest wrist among us. You shall draw the corks. If you let the lemonade pop, not a drop of it goes down your throat. Effie, Annis, Priscilla, you are three notoriously lazy girls. It's doing you a true kindness to set you to work. Effie, clear the toilet table for supper. Away with the combs, the brushes, and the looking-glass. Annis, tear the leaves out of your book of exercises, and set them out for plates.
no,
I'll unpack. Nobody touches the baskets but me. Priscilla, You have the prettiest ears in the room. You shall act as sentinel, my dear, and listen at the door. Cecilia, when you have done devouring those tarts with your eyes, take that pair of scissors, Miss Desor. Allow me to apologize for the mean manner in which this school is carried on. The knives and forks are counted and locked up every night. I say take that pair of scissors, Cecilia, and carve the cake. And don't keep the largest bit for yourself. Are we all ready? Very well. Now take example by me. Talk as much as you like, so long as you don't talk too loud. There is one other thing before we begin. The men always propose toasts on these occasions. Let's be like the men. Can any of you make a speech?
Ah.
It falls on me as usual. I propose the first toast. Down with all schools and teachers, especially the new teacher, who came this half year.
Oh.
Mercy, how it stings. The fixed gas in the lemonade took the order, at that moment, by the throat, and effectually checked the flow of her eloquence. It made no difference to the girls, excepting the ease of feeble stomachs. Who cares for eloquence in the presence of a supper table? There were no feeble stomachs in that bedroom. With what inexhaustible energy Miss Ladd's young ladies ate and drank. How merrily they enjoyed the delightful privilege of talking nonsense. And alas, how vainly they tried, in after life, to renew the once unalloyed enjoyment of tarts and lemonade. In the unintelligible scheme of creation, there appears to be no human happiness, not even the happiness of schoolgirls, which is ever complete. Just as it was drawing to a close, the enjoyment of the feast was interrupted by an alarm from the sentinel at the door. Put out the candle. Priscilla whispered somebody on the stairs. Chapter 2. Biography in the bedroom. The candle was instantly extinguished. In discreet silence the girls stole back to their beds and listened. As an aid to the vigilance of the sentinel, the door had been left ajar. Through the narrow opening, a creaking of the broad wooden stairs of the old house became audible. In another moment there was silence. An interval passed, and the creaking was heard again. This time, the sound was distant and diminishing. On a sudden it stopped. The midnight silence was disturbed no more. What did this mean? Had one among the many persons in authority under Miss Ladd's roof heard the girls talking, and ascended the stairs to surprise them in the act of violating one of the rules of the house? So far, such a proceeding was by no means uncommon. But was it within the limits of probability that a teacher should alter her opinion of her own duty halfway up the stairs, and deliberately go back to her own room again? The bare idea of such a thing was absurd on the face of it. What more rational explanation could ingenuity discover on the spur of the moment? Francine was the first to offer a suggestion. She shook and shivered in her bed, and said, "For heaven's sake, light the candle again. It's a ghost. Clear away the supper, you fools, before the ghost can report us to Miss Ladd." With this excellent advice Emily checked the rising panic. The door was closed. The candle was lit. All traces of the supper disappeared. For 5 minutes more they listened again. No sound came from the stairs. No teacher, or ghost of a teacher, appeared at the door. Having eaten her supper, Cecilia's immediate anxieties were at an end. She was at leisure to exert her intelligence for the benefit of her schoolfellows. In her gentle, ingratiating way, she offered a composing suggestion. "When we heard the creaking, I don't believe there was anybody on the stairs. In these old houses there are always strange noises at night, and they say the stairs here were made more than 200 years since." The girls looked at each other with a sense of relief, but they waited to hear the opinion of the Queen. Emily, as usual, justified the confidence placed in her. She discovered an ingenious method of putting Cecilia's suggestion to the test. "Let's go on talking,"
she said.
"If Cecilia is right, the teachers are all asleep, and we have nothing to fear from them. If she's wrong, we shall sooner or later see one of them at the door. Don't be alarmed, Miss Desor. Catching us talking at night, in this school, only means a reprimand. Catching us with a light ends in punishment. Blow out the candle. Francine's belief in the ghost was too sincerely superstitious to be shaken. She started up in bed.
Oh.
Don't leave me in the dark. I'll take the punishment. If we are found out. On your sacred word of honor? Emily stipulated. Yes, yes. The Queen's sense of humor was tickled. There's something funny, she remarked, addressing her subjects, in a big girl like this coming to a new school and beginning with a punishment. May I ask if you're a foreigner? Miss de Sor? My papa is a Spanish gentleman, Francine answered, with dignity. And your mama? My mama is English. And you have always lived in the West Indies? I have always lived in the island of St. Domingo. Emily checked off on her fingers the different points thus far discovered in the character of Mr. de Sor's daughter. She's ignorant, and superstitious, and foreign, and rich. My dear, forgive the familiarity. You are an interesting girl, and we must really know more of you. Entertain the bedroom. What have you been about all your life? And what in the name of wonder brings you here? Before you begin, I insist on one condition. In the name of all the young ladies in the room, no useful information about the West Indies. Francine disappointed her audience. She was ready enough to make herself an object of interest to her companions, but she was not possessed of the capacity to arrange events in their proper order. Necessary to the recital of the simplest narrative, Emily was obliged to help her, by means of questions. In one respect, the result justified the trouble taken to obtain it. A sufficient reason was discovered for the extraordinary appearance of a new pupil. On the day before the school closed for the holidays, Mr. de Sor's elder brother had left him an estate in St. Domingo, and a fortune in money as well, on the one easy condition that he continued to reside in the island. The question of expense being now beneath the notice of the family, Francine had been sent to England, especially recommended to Miss Ladd as a young lady with grand prospects, sorely in need of a fashionable education. The voyage had been so timed, by the advice of the schoolmistress, as to make the holidays a means of obtaining this object privately. Francine was to be taken to Brighton, where excellent masters could be obtained to assist Miss Ladd. With 6 weeks before her, she might in some degree make up for lost time, and, when the school opened again, she would avoid the mortification of being put down in the lowest class, along with the children. The examination of Miss de Sor having produced these results was pursued no further. Her character now appeared in a new, and not very attractive,
light.
She audaciously took to herself the whole credit of telling her story. I think it's my turn now, she said, to be interested and amused. May I ask you to begin, Miss Emily? All I know of you at present is had your family name is Brown. Emily held up her hand for silence. Was the mysterious creaking on the stairs making itself heard once more?
No.
The sound that had caught Emily's quick ear came from the beds, on the opposite side of the room, occupied by the 3 lazy girls. With no new alarm to disturb them, Effie, Annis, and Priscilla had yielded to the composing influences of a good supper and a warm night. They were fast asleep, and the stoutest of the 3, softly, as became a young lady, was snoring. The unblemished reputation of the bedroom was dear to Emily. In her capacity of queen, she felt herself humiliated in the presence of the new pupil. If that fat girl ever gets a lover, she said indignantly, I shall consider it my duty to warn the poor man before he marries her. Her ridiculous name is Euphemia. I have christened her, far more appropriately, boiled veal. No color in her hair, no color in her eyes, no color in her complexion. In short, no flavor in Euphemia. You naturally object to snoring. Pardon me if I turn my back on you. I am going to throw my slipper at her. The soft voice of Cecilia, suspiciously drowsy in tone, interposed in the interests of mercy. She can't help it, poor thing. And she really isn't loud enough to disturb us. She won't disturb _you_. At any rate, rouse yourself.
Cecilia.
We are wide awake on this side of the room, and Francine says it's our turn to amuse her. A low murmur, dying away gently in a sigh. was the only answer. Sweet Cecilia had yielded to the somnolent influences of the supper and the night. The soft infection of repose seemed to be in some danger of communicating itself to Francine. Her large mouth opened luxuriously in a long-continued yawn. "Good night,"
said Emily.
Miss de Sor became wide awake in an instant.
"No,"
she said positively. "You are quite mistaken if you think I am going to sleep. Please exert yourself." "Miss Emily, I am waiting to be interested." Emily appeared to be unwilling to exert herself. She preferred talking of the weather. "Isn't the wind rising?" she said. There could be no doubt of it. The leaves in the garden were beginning to rustle, and the pattering of the rain sounded on the windows. Francine, as her straight chin proclaimed to all students of physiognomy, was an obstinate girl. Determined to carry her point, she tried Emily's own system on Emily herself. She put questions. "Have you been long at this school?" "More than 3 years." "Have you got any brothers and sisters?" "I am the only child." "Are your father and mother alive?" Emily suddenly raised herself in bed. "Wait a minute,"